As many good evenings I'm seeing in the chat box should be as many answers when I ask you questions. When it comes to questions, there's a lot more silence, both in the classroom and in the chat box. But I'm seeing a lot of people saying good morning, good evening in vocal as well as in the chat box, which is a good beginning. We are warming up to class discussions. So anyone who remembers, what did we talk about in our last class?
Yes, ma'am.
About
What was it, Aditya?
Ma'am, yes. In our last class, we have talked about the perspective of crime. So, which include of mens rea and actus rea and the motives and the various aspects prior of perpetrating the crime. So, on a brief, we have discussed about these things, ma'am.
Do you think we talked
various.
about harm and punishment and actus reus? Did we talk about actus reus?
Not in depth, ma'am. We have just
touched on the idea.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else you remember we talked about? Not only you, I'm asking the whole class. I'm not putting Aditya on the top. He's volunteered. It's a good thing that yes, we did talk about generally, what is our understanding of what is crime and whether there is anything inherently wrong. What may be the criteria? Because there are two ways we looked at it. One was that technically speaking, only that action is a crime which is declared by the law as crime, whatever be the consequence of that crime. Irrespective, because usually we say, yes, there should be mens rea, there should be an action which is punishable, and it should result into harm. And we also said that whenever there is a general principle, there's always an exception, but we didn't talk about exceptions as such. But we did allude to some examples where the person did not know it was an offense, and so when the person does not know, should this person be liable? And some of us did quote the legal principle saying that ignorance of law is no excuse. So we're talking about the recent cricketer who was found feeding birds on Ganga River. He did not know that feeding birds on the Ganga River at this point of time is a crime, so should be held liable or not. So there are a lot of questions there. We also talked about what is our understanding of law? What is the purpose of law? What does the law do? And we certainly need to ask ourselves, what does the criminal law do? Anyone? What is the purpose of criminal law? Yes, Nirupa? To justify the crime. What do you mean by no? There's on the chat box. I think Vicky or Vinay has written. I forget now what is the name. Let me just check. Has written it is justify the crime. What do you mean by justify the crime? It's Vicky. We said crime. Okay, so it says crime and liability. Vicky Kumar says to justify the crime. What do you mean by justify the crime? Okay. Crimes and their liability, I understand, but your second sentence is a little confusing to me. When you say to justify the crime, we justify the punishment for the crime by criminal law, or do we justify the crime? Priyanka says its purpose is to punish. Vicky says to prove the guilt. Prove the guilt is a different expression than to say justify the crime. Crime and responsibility, so that's all good. So can we spend one more minute on saying what is the purpose of law? Because we're talking about justice, the distinction between justice and law, that not all laws are just from the perspective of all the people involved. There will be some group of people who will say it is to promote justice. Other people will say that no, it is an instrument of harassment. And surrogacy was an example we talked about in the last class. And incidentally, I should tell you that Harleen has done her PhD work on surrogacy. Am I correct, Harleen?
Yes, ma'am. I have done my PhD on the rights of the surrogate child, where I analyzed the rights of the surrogate child.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we had a lot of discussion that day that for whom surrogacy is beneficial, to whom it is exploitative, and what should happen. Generally speaking, we were not kind of specifically looking at the law, but generally speaking, that what is the rationale for surrogacy? And how the law, who's speaking? So, okay. Nishant says that the purpose of law is that we can live in society where rules and regulations can be followed. Just because we make the law, do we follow the law? How many of us have been overspeeding despite the law being there? How many of us do not walk and drive on the left side of the road despite the law? So merely because law is made does not mean that we will all follow, but it certainly is laying down the directions. Some laws are enforced very strictly. Especially when if you remember recent past, the traffic police was enforcing the traffic rules very vehemently, and every day people were ending up with fines up to many thousand rupees because of the strict enforcement. And nowadays, when I go sometime out with my car, I do find, at least in model town, red light, everybody's staying before the red light and before the zebra crossing, which for me is a huge change from pre-pandemic days to now. But some laws are flouted without any consequence. Dowry. Till date, we demand dowry, we give dowry, we accept dowry. And while taking, giving, and demanding dowry has been an offense since 1961. So certainly, laws can lay down the norms, but whether they will be followed or not are dependent on many aspects. Another concept we want to discuss about is who is a criminal. Nishant, you want to say something? Nishant, your mic is on, so I'm asking you. Okay, you don't want to. Anyone who wants to answer, who in your opinion is a criminal?
Criminal is a person who intentionally does a misconduct or a crime or a criminal action, like hurting someone, or if he murders someone, or with intention if he injures someone. So all this comes in an crime. It comes under a crime, but there should be a motive and an intention behind that.
No. Suppose whatever is the crime, because the other day we did talk about whether tax evasion, not paying the tax is a crime, and you said yes, it's a crime, and many of us do evade tax. So do we think of ourselves as criminal?
Yes,
And
ma'am. In one way, we are criminal in that case sense also, because if you are not
when you say one way we are criminal, but in which case we are not criminal? Forget about tax. No, forget about tax. How many of you drive vehicles? Quite many of you drive vehicles. How many times have you jumped the red light? That is an offense. Do we think we are criminals when we jump the red light?
Yes, ma'am. We obviously commit a crime at that point.
No, I'm not asking you the question you committed a crime or not. I'm saying, do you think you are a criminal?
Yes, ma'am.
Jhoot. Complete jhoot, isn't it?
But ma'am, sometimes yeah.
हमें से कोई नहीं सोचता कि जब हमने रेड लाइट जंप की तो हम क्रिमिनल हैं, पर अगर मेरे सर्वेंट ने 10 रुपए मेरे जेब में से निकाल लिए वो तो क्रिमिनल है.
हाँ जी, वो तो है.
Yeah, we have got a very different understanding of who is a criminal. It's not merely somebody needs to mute yourself because मेरी voice वो कर रही है, resound कर रही है. Thank you. So there are two things. One is that who is a criminal is an important question to think about in understanding as to how do we understand criminal law. So these other offenses, which are seen as technical offenses, jumping the red light, overspeeding, not paying tax, all these we think are not offenses in the sense we understand offenses. Crime is murder, theft, hurt. These are the categories we think are crime. Deepak, you want to say something? Deepika, not the full, Deepika, there are two Deepikas in this class. Mohammed also want to say something? Yes, please. Speak. I can see you are unmuted, but I can't hear you.
Am I audible?
Now you are.
Ma'am, I
Yes.
think for a criminal mind or say a person to be criminal, the society has to be affected largely. So if I break a law, say I jump on the red light, I'm breaking the rule, but it's not like something I'm doing as a criminal offense, or say
No, so
I'm
tell
not.
me, when our servant takes 10 rupees from my pocket, does it affect the society at large?
I think it doesn't, ma'am.
But do we not treat him as a criminal? वो तो चोर है, उसको हम
Yes,
फौरन
ma'am.
नौकरी से निकाल देंगे.
So, ma'am, in that case, we have to see the other aspects why he have taken a money. So the reason behind the act. So if might be he is hungry or he needs some medicine for someone and he took them.
क्योंकि उस दिन वो हंग्री था, उसको या हंग्री नहीं था, खाने तो खिलाते हो शायद उसे, पर क्योंकि उसका उस दिन मन कर रहा था कि वो एक आइसक्रीम खा ले. Then you have another servant who took down 10,000 rupees. उसकी बेटी की शादी थी, उसको चाहिए थे पैसे.
So, ma'am, that is misconduct, is not a crime.
You will not hand him over to the police?
No, ma'am.
अच्छा, तो 10,000 रुपए का क्या करोगे? कोई बात नहीं.
नहीं, 10,000 वाले में कर देंगे मैम, 10 रुपए वाले में नहीं करेंगे.
तो ना उसकी बेटी की शादी है, उसके घर वाले बहुत दहेज मांग रहे हैं लड़के वाले, तो उसने आपके यहाँ से चुरा लिया. आपके यहाँ 20 साल से काम करता था वो, उसको लगता है कि आप उसको वैसे भी तनख्वाह कम देते थे. Whether his justifications will not make his action criminal. So Sandhya says this is crime. So whether jumping the red light is a crime or not crime?
Ma'am, legally this is crime, but this is not bodily injuring anyone until or unless.
अगर bodily injury ना हो, property को injury ना हो, तो crime नहीं है.
Ma'am, it will be taken under some other areas like torts and all.
नहीं, अगर आपके जो है nude photos छाप दे आपका ex boyfriend, आपको physical injury भी नहीं है, money की injury भी नहीं है, तो injury crime है कि नहीं है?
Ma'am, that will be under defamation and all.
भाई crime है कि नहीं है? मैं आपको offense नहीं पूछ रही कौन सा specific crime है.
Ma'am, crime
है ना? तो अभी तो physical injury भी नहीं हुई और money की injury भी नहीं हुई.
Ma'am, may I?
Mental injury तो हुई.
Ma'am, breaking red light also, maybe it doesn't harm, but there is a possibility that because of that person who is breaking the light might cause some injury. There is also a possibility that.
नहीं, rationale of the law is that only. Rationale of the law is that only, that it is capable of causing injury to the other people who are on the other side rather running. They are not supposed to stop because there's a red light. You're not supposed to be expecting vehicles from the other side. So there is a rationale for the law. But if we do not agree with the rationale or we do not know the rationale, does that justify my action is one question. But I'm not onto that question. I'm onto the question of who do we think is a criminal. So this was one example where certain categories of offenses, when committed by us, people like us, we do not think that we are criminals. We ourselves do not classify ourselves as criminals. Forget about what the others say about us. Then the second aspect is how long a person, when does a criminal becomes a criminal? So you jump the red light. There was no policeman, there was no CCTV. So are you a criminal? Nobody caught you. Nobody even knows that. So the question is that whether anybody who commits a crime is a criminal. Is that how do we understand who is a criminal?
Ma'am, can I present my opinion?
Sure. Yes, Nirupa. Who was presenting the opinion?
Nirupam.
हाँ निरुपम, वो निरुपा ही दिख रहा है मुझे अभी. हाँ निरुपम, बताएं. No, we can't hear you if you're speaking.
Ma'am, who break the law with the bad intention, maybe it's a criminal.
So jumping the red light is not with bad intention. You're all confusing between the two words. One is, have I committed a crime? And we all said, yes, we have committed a crime. Then the question is whether anybody and everybody who commits a crime, do we think of that person as a criminal? Or are there any technical answers to who is a criminal? Suppose you found you really caught you caught the person who was pickpocketing. You handed him over to the police, but he was acquitted by the court. But you know that he was he has taken out the money from your pocket. So just because the court has acquitted him, is he a criminal is my one question. Whether when you handed him over to the police, did you think he was a criminal? At that point itself, when you handed over the thief or the pickpocket or whoever has given you the stab wound, at that point of time, when you apprehended the person who you think has committed this offense, you hand him over to the police. Whether he is a criminal at that stage.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Innocent until
He is,
proven.
ma'am.
No, ma'am,
He
he is
is.
not criminal.
So
He
you
is.
caught the murderer, no, the one who killed your father in your presence.
Pardon me,
Is-
ma'am, but
Is
I
a
think he
criminal
is.
or not a criminal?
Only until
Ji?
ma'am, still he will be accused until his guilt is proved in the court of law.
Okay, so that's a very, very lawyerly answer, and there's a correct answer from the lawyer's perspective that till the time you are convicted by a court of law, an appropriate court of law, you are not a criminal. So what justifies? You're found on the road sometimes, and in the news also we find that a mob of people killed or lynched or at least beat up a man who was, who was assumed to be thief. No? So he kind of was running away. The owner said, thief, thief, thief. The neighbors caught hold of him and we started beating him up. So what is that action of beating him up? Why are we beating him up?
Ma'am, no one have the rights to beat him up.
No, they don't have the right. That's all right. But why do we beat him?
Because they think that he is the criminal, but it's not the right way. That's why the lynching is such a heinous act,
to deter him.
considered as a heinous act.
So that's a good progress that technically speaking, he's not a criminal at that stage. So now think of another person who was prosecuted by the court and was found to have committed whatever offense. So let's say he had committed theft and he was sent to 7 years of imprisonment. He has completed his 7 years, now comes out. Now, is he still a criminal or not?
No, because he has
No, ma'am.
completed
No.
his term of-
Can he
No,
get
he
government
isn't.
job? Can he get government job?
No, he'll still be a criminal even if he's finished his sentence of whatever
So
crime
what is
he's
the
committed.
purpose
Still
of
be
the
a criminal till
punishment?
he's not
What is
acquitted
the
of his crime.
punishment? What is the purpose of the punishment?
To deter him from doing it again.
So that is already done. That is already
So he's
completed.
done it
So you have
once.
achieved your purpose. If your purpose
He's
was
done it once.
no, Nishant, the purpose was that he should not commit it again, and that we are saying that by sending him to 7 years of prison, he will not do it again. So we have achieved that purpose. Now, why he should be classified as a criminal now that he has already learned his lesson?
He is not a criminal, but there are like eligibility for government jobs. So he is just not fulfilling those eligibility criteria.
No. So go back to your Indian Penal Code, which says the punishment for this offense is this. It prescribes a specific punishment. It nowhere says that in addition to this punishment, you will also not be entitled to take a government job. So that loss of government job is not part of the punishment. So on what logic, on what aspect, what is our rationale for putting additional restrictions while it is not part of IPC.
Ma'am, social stigma comes with the punishment. We look down
This is
upon the
not, no,
person.
no, no. This is not, the government job not being given is not social stigma. It is a legal disability imposed by law. So which means,
I believe.
that for these purposes, we are continuing to treat him as a criminal. So the punishment doesn't end only with the
Government job.
punishment.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
government job is there for someone who has already taken punishment from the court.
Is there?
Yes, ma'am. I have heard something like that.
ऐसा तो चलेगा नहीं ना, आपको सोर्स बताना पड़ेगा.
Ma'am, actually, a 24 or 25 years old boy who was punished for a kind of rape or attempt to rape, and he after that qualified UPSC. Yes, ma'am, I have heard that. In defense area, it might be that or somewhere where our nation security is taken, there government job is restricted. But
No,
not
you will
in
have
every
to look at that news again, whether the offense was committed as a child. If it was committed below the age of 18, then our law says no disqualification will attach. But if the offense is committed after adulthood, I'm not aware of any such exception.
Okay, ma'am, it might be there that it will be done
Because
in
as a child,
childhood.
we
It
have
might be
said
that.
that children are of a growing capacities. They learn and they have a whole life in front of them. Therefore, when they commit an offense in their childhood, and this is till the age of 18, then no disability will follow. But there is no such thing. So, one is the state disabilities. The other is also that if you are aware that somebody had a past criminal background by having been in the prison, will we want to make them friends? Will we may want to have marital relationships with that man or a woman or whoever that person is? So this whole conception of criminal is not linked with only that he has been convicted. So whether conviction gives you any free slate at any point of time. In India, we haven't provided so as yet. In other countries, in England, I'm aware of for a long time, since 1974, they had a law which provides a clean slate after certain years of being clean after coming out of the prison. So somewhere this whole concept of crime, we have also the principle that in criminal law, interpretation of the sections which define laws should be strict. It should not be including more people than the language permits. And the rationale for this strict interpretation is that the consequence of being found to have committed an offense are lifelong. It's a very, very serious consequence for any person who is put to trial and is convicted. Therefore, the whole principles of criminal law are favoring the accused person. The burden to prove the offense is on the prosecution, on the state. There are exceptions to everything, but we are talking about general principles. And prosecution has to prove it beyond reasonable doubt. There are two standards of evidence. One we call as proof beyond reasonable doubt, which is the standard and which is a stricter standard applicable in criminal law. The other standard is probabilities. So in civil matters, we look at the probability of who is telling the truth. And the burden keeps on changing on who is alleging what in the circumstances. So in civil cases, the standard is much lower. In criminal matters, it is much higher. And the burden always is, accepting the exceptions, on the prosecution to prove. Because then the defense lawyer, because as a youngster, we are all very concerned. How can I defend a murderer? How can I defend a rapist? So that's a very major moral issue. That should we defend murderers? Do we defend people who are causing such violence? Large-scale violence, large-scale deaths happen. You do a mix-up of, mixing in grains and things like that, or the huge tragedies we have heard many times. Somebody adulterates the liquor and people go blind, many of them die. Whether should I defend such an accused person? How can I defend? And also cases where the accused themselves come and say, yes, this is what I've done. Now you have a major dilemma. And our approach has to know where to understand the importance of prosecution, burden on the prosecution. Because then our job as a defense counsel is not to produce false evidence, to argue, to defend him beyond reasonable doubt that he has not committed. Our burden is discharged by finding loopholes in the prosecution story. Because the burden is on them to prove this man has done this or not, man or woman, whoever the accused person might be. So therefore, the defense lawyer, this is slightly different in civil matters. We say both cases, lawyers have to do zealous representation. And some people, Mahatma Gandhi is a major example, who has written his book on experiments with truth, where he does talk about that he was not making a distinction between professional ethics and truth. For him, he will do the practice by truth. A lot of lawyers make a distinction between professional ethics and truth. So you know what is the truth this person is saying. So this man comes and says, yes, I have committed rape, but I want you to defend me. Now you are in a dilemma what to do. He's telling you this. But then, remember our discussion, till he is proved to have been committed rape by the court of law. And this has to be proved by the prosecution. So even though the man himself says, I am a criminal, I have committed rape, what's your take? He is innocent till proved guilty, even though he himself is confessing that he has committed the offense. So there are this is the difference between layman's understanding of who is a criminal and a lawyer's understanding of who is a criminal. He is not the rapist, he is not the murderer till the time the prosecution proves so. If it's a case of a child, then the burden is on the defense. There are categories that in child rape, in POCSO cases, etc., where burden has proved. Even in such cases, the burden of proof, the standard of proof is not proof beyond reasonable doubt. The defense has to create doubt that maybe he did not do this. You don't have to say, no, surely he did not do that. So these are the nuances which you should be aware of before we get into understanding what are the offenses, various offenses, etc. Okay, and one more question today we want to ask ourselves. Do we know what is the hierarchy of courts, criminal courts in India? Where does a case start? And how does a case start? We'll be learning law in all our laws in LLB in Delhi University through case law. But how does that case start? We will be looking at High Court and Supreme Court judgments. You know, how does a case start?
Through a first information report.
That's called FIR. Whether, suppose a class fellow of yours has a fight with you in the faculty premise, physical presence was there, and he gave you few slaps. Can you register an FIR?
Yes, ma'am.
No,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
cannot. No, you cannot. We have further classification of offenses. We call them as cognizable offenses and non-cognizable offenses. Cognizable offenses are such in which, and we have few legislations, 3 primary legislations which deal with criminal law prosecutions. One, the one we will be studying in this course, is Indian Penal Code. The second one, which decides all the processes, all the procedures, are Code of Criminal Procedure, 1973. So Indian Penal Code is 1860. CRPC, which in short form says CRPC, it is 1973, which lays down all the procedures. What should the police do on arrest? What are the circumstances? When can the police arrest? What is done by after arrest? So all this is written in this CRPC. Which court will have jurisdiction? What procedure the courts will follow? So all the procedures of police investigation and court proceedings are laid down in CRPC. It also provides for appeal from one judgment to the other higher courts. Then we have a third legislation, Indian Evidence Act, which says what is admissible, what is not admissible. So if some students in my other class were saying, "Oh, we want to join your class because we have heard you are a very good teacher." So I said, this is hearsay. This is something which somebody else is saying. You do not know yourself. In law, ordinarily, hearsay is not admissible. So this kind of principles, that whose evidence is reliable, who can give witness, in what circumstances the property which has been seized can be produced. So there are all the principles that what we call as what is the strength of that evidence. All that is in the Evidence Act. All these three come together when all these three have played their part when we read the cases. Of course, in our analysis in this course, we'll be focusing on the aspect of the definition of crimes, that whether the offense has been committed or not, and how this section has to be read. But it is the interplay of these three legislations which determine. So coming back to the question of cognizable, non-cognizable, the CRPC has a Schedule 1. This is something you should remember all your 3 years. Most of you will forget it very soon. But this is very important to find out why the police will not file an FIR when somebody has beaten you up, if it is only beating. But if he suppose gave you a fist blow and your tooth was broken, then you can register an FIR. Because the second instance is of grievous hurt, previous one is hurt, and in case of hurt, it's a non-cognizable offense. Police will write your report. They will not, all writing of the reports are not FIR. The consequence of the FIR, that police can arrest without warrant. And in non-cognizable offenses, if you want a prosecution, you will have to go to the magistrate to say, no, sir, case needs to be registered. And it is on your complaint to the magistrate, if he thinks fit, that he can order investigation. And most of the time, students get very agitated. There's no, this beating took place, this happened, that happened, and the police is not registering. But if you look at the Schedule 1 of the CRPC, there's no definition of what is a cognizable offense. It's only saying that in cognizable offenses, what consequence will happen. But what is a cognizable offense? You need to look at Schedule 1. So Schedule 1 has got five or six columns, I don't remember exactly. So one column gives you the section number. The second one gives you a brief what the offense is about. The third column mentions what is the punishment prescribed for this offense. Then the next one column provides whether the offense is cognizable or non-cognizable. The next column after that provides whether the offense is bailable or non-bailable. And the last column provides which court will try this case. So certainly it is giving the schedule only for the district level. And we'll come back to the hierarchy in a minute to understand. So there are magistrates, magistrate of first class, judicial magistrates, then there are the session judge, all those mentioned are there. So in order to find out which court has what jurisdiction, whether the offense is bailable or non-bailable, whether it's cognizable or non-cognizable, that schedule has to be consulted. Without that, you cannot say. The ordinary principle is that if it is a serious offense, it is cognizable and non-bailable. When we say non-bailable, it does not mean that bail will not be granted. It merely means that the judges will exercise discretion. We'll read more details about it when we come to the second semester and look at CRPC. Bailable offense means that the SHO itself can grant, as a matter of right, the person can avail bail. So in all those cases, when it is a bailable offense, the accused person can take bail straight from the police station itself. There will be, of course, the requirements of bail, the requirements of release on bail, you need a security, etc. So all that. So coming back to the classification of offenses, the classification determines what action will follow. So certainly, police investigation will start only in cases of cognizable offenses or when the magistrate directs them to do so. So certainly, you are right that first step, the qualification is in cognizable offenses. Case starts with filing of the FIR. Yes, Muskan.
Ma'am, there is constant banging sound in someone's mic. Ma'am, it's very distracting.
The banging is happening in my background.
Yes, ma'am.
It's very distracting. Is it for, no, because I was thinking of that,
No,
when
no, ma'am,
most
it's
people
good.
said we can't hear that. Because I was thinking that I might have to go to the university for holding the classes. But they said that the noise is not so loud. So Muskan,
Ma'am,
you
I
will have
have a
to,
doubt. Ma'am, I have a doubt.
no, first let's clarify the sound part of it. Whether the others are also getting disturbed.
It's all right, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
It's all right, ma'am.
Because the only other choice that then we'll have to, then I have to go to the faculty to hold these classes. My other class did not say anything about it. I had a 2-hour class earlier.
It's all right,
Ma'am, we
Yeah,
can
the next door house is getting demolished. So अभी तो आपको बैंगिंग सुनाई पड़ रही है, उसमें उनकी बहुत ही मशीन, ड्रिल मशीन भी चल रही है. So the system does try to knock off a lot of background noise. So that's what. So where were we?
Ma'am, doubt है एक.
हाँ जी बताएं.
Ma'am, you said if the hurt is not very grieve and it's just a slap, so FIR will not be registered. What if a girl slaps a boy in front of the whole class? Maybe the damage isn't done externally, but internally it spoils it, like he's into depression and all. So
Yeah,
will
you
FIR
still,
not be
you still,
registered?
you still need to know, say boy hits a girl or the boy hits a boy or a girl hits a girl. The situation is the same in criminal law. Just hitting the other person doesn't result into, so in that case, you will have to approach the magistrate for saying, no, this was very humiliating. This is much more severe than merely a slap. And if the magistrate think that, yes, it is so, Thappad movie is all about that, no, that he hits her in the party in front of so many people. So technically speaking, she's not entitled to file an FIR, but she can certainly ask for divorce on that ground. But that's about the married couple. The answer is simple, that yes, whether it doesn't make a difference. It may be very humiliating for the person. A colleague hits another one in presence of other colleagues. It's equally humiliating. It's a very humiliating experience. So, but the law, and grievous hurt is also, there are definition of grievous hurt. You will have to look at section 320, I believe, to find out what are the categories. There's a list of 8 categories there. It's only those 8 categories which are classified as grievous hurt. If the hurt does not fall there, you are not, the police is not obligated to file an FIR.
So the remedy then remains is to approach the magistrate, ma'am. Is it?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
In all
ma'am.
cases which are non-cognizable, the only way you can initiate an action is through the complaint to the magistrate.
Ma'am, does it fall under torts?
Tort में पता नहीं. Arlene, do you know this? ये tort में आता है कि नहीं?
Ma'am, yes, I would like to add on that in such cases of hurts, it's an NCR, that's a non-cognizable report which will be filed. And of course, there is no bar in initiating both civil and criminal proceedings at the same time. So in case if any kind of, normally hurt doesn't call for any kind of damage as such. It depends on the circumstances. Otherwise, it will be confined to criminal law.
Tort में कौन सा tort होगा? अगर किसी ने मारा मुझे थप्पड़,
थप्पड़ में तो it's a battery, ma'am, it come under use of criminal force. Battery में आता है.
नहीं, वो पूछ रहे हैं स्टूडेंट कि ये tort में आएगा कि नहीं आएगा. तो मुझे तो नहीं पता, नेग्लिजेंस तो मुझे पता है, मगर ये तो वो केस है नहीं, और डिफेमेशन में भी नहीं आएगा. तो टॉर्ट की कैटेगरी देखनी पड़ेगी, मेरी जानकारी में तो नहीं है.
ऐसा स्पेसिफिकली नहीं है कोई.
तो उसके साथ में कुछ और कॉन्सिक्वेंस लगा करके कुछ बनता होगा, तब तो होगा, मगर स्ट्रेट अवे इसका रेमेडी नहीं है.
जी.
And when you will look at this schedule 1, you will find that even though the general principle is that if it's a serious offense, it will be cognizable and non-bailable. But when you compare these offenses, you do not find it constantly there. You might, and also usually the punishment will also be very severe for those categories. But this is not followed very categorically across all offenses. And you will find a lot of moral judgments there, that some offenses are punishable with 10 years, but they are still bailable. So you will see that if you were to examine them more closely. Yeah, no, the offenses will be there, but the question, it is not that it is not, hurt is also an offense. So it's not hurt is not an offense. So battery, the word battery is not used in our IPC.
It's there in the
So,
torts, ma'am. It's there in the torts.
okay. So
Battery is there in the torts. So
so
use
then
of
it will
criminal
come in the
force will
tort of
come under
battery.
torts. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so that will come in the tort of battery.
Yeah.
But in IPC, there are the non-cognizable offenses are also offenses. The
Yes.
procedure for prosecuting them is different. So it is not that the non-cognizable offenses are not offenses, but we have made a distinction between the two. There will be many circumstances where we say that why such an offense, why such an action is not an offense. Suppose I am a very rich person, I've got lots of money. I'm the Ambani in my area. And I have a neighbor who is dying of starvation. I do not give him any food, though I have lots of plenty. I've got more than what I need. Should I be held liable for not looking after? Also, suppose, forget this example. We know that if I see somebody hit on the road and I see him bleeding on the road, I do not stop and just go my way. Should I not be held liable for causing death by my negligence, by my omission? But that's not an offense in India. I see a man drowning, I know how to swim, but I do not rescue that person. There are lots of areas where we think, oh, there's a moral obligation for you to do it. It's not a legal obligation to save the person. Many times we say, why this regulation? What is the whole point? The technical offenses, what we call them. What is the need? Why have red light at 12 night? Who is on the roads in any case? So we find lots of questions which do not fit our common sense of whether it should be an offense or whether it should not be an offense. But for purposes of criminal law, we are starting with the point where law for certain actions or omissions have been declared to be an offense. And we will be dealing with only those categories. When it comes to the purpose of criminal law, we say a major purpose of criminal law is to maintain status quo. If I have property, my neighbor doesn't have, the criminal law doesn't say, okay, distribute your property. It only says my neighbor should not take my property. It is not about welfare of people. It is not about securing life to people. It is only saying not to attack the other, not to steal the other's property. So whatever that person has, criminal law is only bothered about if you change that. A person is healthy, you hit him, make him ill, make him unwell. That's what the talk is, what the talk is about. So what the criminal law is about. So we should understand that very quickly. So anyone who knows how, so after FIR, what happens?
General diary entry.
Okay. Then?
And the person has to appear within the 24 hours towards the magistrate.
If
appear करेंगे अगर arrest नहीं होगी, arrest तो आपने बताया नहीं.
Ma'am, once the FIR is
charge
lodged,
sheet, then
Ma'am, I think investigation होगा.
इन्वेस्टिगेशन होगा जिसमें ये सब चीजें होंगी, एक्यूज पर्सन की तलाश होगी, इंटेरोगेशन होगा बहुत से लोगों का, एंड तो पता करने के लिए कि कौन कौन सस्पेक्ट हैं, कुछ लोगों की अरेस्ट हो सकती है, कुछ सामान जब्त किया जा सकता है, सो सीजर ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी. हाँ, so investigation will include all that. After investigation is complete, then what happens?
charge sheet, ma'am. Charge sheet file होगी, ma'am.
हाँ, चार्ज शीट फाइल होगी, उसको कहते हैं फाइनल रिपोर्ट. चार्ज शीट हम लोग कहते हैं, मगर सीआरपीसी कोई वर्ड चार्ज शीट का इस्तेमाल नहीं करता है.
मैम फाइनल रिपोर्ट से पहले विटनेस का वो लिया जाएगा ना, तो विटनेस को
इंटेरोगेशन में जब करते हैं ना सारा का सारा इन्वेस्टिगेशन में, टॉक टू लॉट ऑफ पीपल, विटनेसेस, एक्यूज, सस्पेक्ट, कंप्लेनेंट, विक्टिम, सबसे बात करते हैं. हु कैन फाइल द एफआईआर? Anybody can file. You don't have to be the victim, or you need not be an eyewitness. I think I'll share a quick slide with you so that we can complete this very quickly. We're about to complete our time for today.
मैम किसी भी स्टेशन में कर सकते हैं एफआईआर फाइल, पुलिस स्टेशन में?
वो कहेंगे जुरिस्डिक्शन के हिसाब से।
But zero FIR is also there nowadays.
हाँ, अभी तो आप फोन करके कर सकते हैं ना, 100 नंबर पे फोन कर दिया तो वहीं पे आपके रजिस्टर हो जाते
Yes, ma'am.
रिसेंटली चेंज हो गए हो थोड़ा, पहले नहीं था।
हैं। Okay, so here we are. I wanted to very quickly mention these other things also. When we say hierarchy, we know that we in the Indian legal system, we have got hierarchy of 3 tiers. Supreme Court is the top jurisdiction over whole of India, all matters. Then we have at the High Court level, some states individually, some states combined have a High Court, and the High Court has civil, criminal, writ jurisdiction. Original jurisdiction is also there. Then we have the district. We will look at the district level hierarchy in criminal justice system. We have got 2 layers primarily. One is called the metropolitan magistrates, and the other is called the session judge. So all the cases, criminal law matters, will start from the district level. So we've got 11 police districts. Every police district has a session judge. We'll forget about the civil judges, civil districts. I forget. Harleen, are there 13 now? Police districts?
Ma'am, I believe so. It's 13 now.
Now I think it's 13.
Yes.
So this is the seat of session judge. So Patiala House is another complex. Takaduma complex. Rohini 4th complex. Dwarka is the 5th. And Saket is the 6th. So we got 6 locations for the district courts. So hierarchy. When we say session judge, there are 2 designations you will find: session judge and additional session judge.
Yes.
The session judge is the administrative head, but the judicial powers are the same. So the session judge would have the power to distribute cases. Somebody's background is noises. Same is about the metropolitan magistrate, that we have a chief metropolitan magistrate, so that also has the administrative powers. Or for example, every district court will have administrative functions like distribution of duties for the Safai Karmachari, for example, or purchase of cutlery. So there are lots of categories. So there's all this function is discharged by the, or maintenance of the building, the administrative powers on the district by the chief metropolitan. So the judicial functions of chief metropolitan magistrate, additional chief judicial magistrate, metropolitan magistrate are the same, and judicial functions of session judge and additional session judge are also same. The chief categories have got administrative functions in addition. So additional session judges tries all cases where the sentence is life imprisonment, death sentence, and death sentence they can give only with the approval of the High Court. Appeals and revisions from the orders of the magistrate, chief metropolitan magistrate, and ACMMs. District session judges, district and session judge, where previously we had only one. I do not know whether there's still only one, which was at this district. District judges, in the civil matters, every district had its own head, but in criminal, we had only one. I'm not very sure what is the latest situation on this one. So certainly, the courts have jurisdiction according to the area, and also in civil matters about what is the money available there. So area plus the classification in Schedule 1 determines which criminal court will have jurisdiction on a given offense. Chief metropolitan magistrates can give imprisonment up to 7 years, and the metropolitan magistrates can give punishments up to 3 years. This is the handbook. If you do a user's handbook search on the Delhi High Court, you will find this book and you can get more details from there. So these are the various stages in a criminal case. First, information report has to be filed. Then police starts with investigation. It might be that, suppose they hear an accident has taken place. Policemen, constable level usually will come sometime with an SI, sub-inspector, but usually 2 constables are sent, and then they investigate, they look at the primary scene, and if they think more investigation is required, they will send a rukka, they will send a note back to the police station saying that we need now specialized teams, etc. The police will do its own investigation purpose. Immediately, if somebody has been arrested, certainly that person will move for application for bail, either if it's a bailable offense or if it's a non-bailable offense. Investigation when completed, it will result into filing of the final report. After that, the court then says the charge sheet has got few columns there, which tells the recipient of the charge sheet what is the offense made out as per the police opinion. So FIRs always have 364 IPC or whatever the section 302, they will mention a charge. But that is not what is meant by charge. This is the allegation by the police that this offense has been committed. And they produce lots of documents with that charge sheet indicating if anybody has been arrested, if some of them are in prison, whether all of them are in prison, somebody is on bail. If suppose originally 5 people were accused, whether all the 5 people have been sent for trial, or it has been found by police investigation that no, one of them is not actually connected. So all that information, then what are the documents which have been attached? So there will be statements by the witnesses, there might be the search warrants, search of the personal search, the property search, the seizing of documents or weapon of offense, or the soiled clothes or blood sample, viscera, everything that the police has done to say that yes, we are convinced that this offense has been committed. So all these papers are included in the charge sheet. As a defense lawyer, this is the first thing you look at. If they say there are 55 documents attached and having 69 pages, you must count whether you do have all those 69 pages intact. So after the police has filed the charge sheet, this goes to the court. Copy is also given to the accused person. And then the judges determine on the face of it, looking at the charge sheet, whether an offense has been made out. And if an offense has been made out, what offense has been made out? So police might say it is 304. Court may think, no, it is 302 or vice versa. They may say it is a grievous hurt. They might say that, no, it is attempt to murder. So the court determines what is the charge and there is a proper hearing on that charge. After the charge is framed, then beginning of trial, whereby the first thing the judge will ask is, do you plead guilty to these charges? And if the accused says no, then trial begins. Date is set for production of evidence. First, the prosecution has to produce evidence. So when the prosecution produce evidence, and we are all aware of witness examination. So the prosecution witness comes, the prosecution lawyer does the questioning, and then the defense lawyer does the cross questioning. At that point of time, there are no arguments. So the whole series of evidence by prosecution is produced, whether whatever they have says, whatever document they have, whatever things they have, whatever report they have from forensics, all that they will produce, and that all will be marked as evidence 1, 2. When you will read your cases, you will find PE5, or it will say PW6. So PW will mean prosecution witness, P will mean prosecution evidence, and DW will mean defense witness. Ordinarily in criminal matters, defense does not produce evidence, does not produce witnesses, because if they decide to, and especially the accused person is very exceptionally put on the witness box, because then they can be cross-examined, and that opens up a lot of problem for them. So as a technique, the defense very rarely produces evidence. It only tries to find problems with the evidence and evidence produced by the prosecution. But anyway, they are entitled to produce the defense evidence. Then there are arguments on the basis of the statements made, documents submitted by the prosecution, followed by arguments by defense, and then the judgment is pronounced on another date usually. And if after the judgment somebody is unhappy with the judgment, either the state or the accused person, appeal can be filed. The terminology important for us to remember is that in criminal matters, the parties are referred to as, what is the state called? It is called the state. The prosecution is called the state. So usually in criminal matters, you will find state versus so-and-so. So state is the prosecutor and the accused person is known as the accused. Civil matters, the parties are referred differently. They are referred to as plaintiff and defendant. So we will be using the term state and accused or prosecution and accused. So with that, we'll stop today. In our next class tomorrow, what I plan to do is, first of all, we'll look at very quickly at the total. Okay, have you downloaded your case material?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody, please do
Yes,
that if you
ma'am.
haven't done that so far.
Yes, ma'am.
Have a look at what is the total offenses, what is the name of the offenses we are going to study in this course. And what I want to also do tomorrow is to give you a task for the weekend. Just one second. I'll be sharing with you my day-to-day schedule of classes for the whole semester, what we are expecting to do in different classes. So tomorrow we'll talk about ingredients of crime and exceptions to that crime, generally overall viewpoint. Mondays are scheduled as tutorial classes, but that means only that we will still have a class. And if there is any leftover discussion from the previous classes, we can take that up. Any doubts, clarification, if there are none, then I will bring up something on related topics to still talk about. So in my schedule, you will see that I have left blank the dates of tutorial. Nobody will ever ask me a question, will we have a class? Yes, we will have all the 5 classes on all the days, unless it's a holiday. And if for any reason I cannot hold a class, which will be exceptional, you will have information on your own. I will put it on the dashboard. So nobody should send me a message asking me, will we have a tutorial class? Will we have a class today? The answer is yes, we will have all our 5 classes on all the days. And ordinarily, we'll try to follow the schedule as I'll give you, I'll post it on the dashboard. For your attendance, you have all to remember that you have to mark your attendance by writing P in the chat box. So if you don't do that, you do not get attendance for the day. So everybody has to remember this before the end of the class, in every class, that you have to do that. So tomorrow we will have.
Ma'am, last time just 5 minutes before my internet went out and I couldn't write P, but I was there.
Yeah, you know, attendance is required only 70%. So it's okay if you miss one day. Okay, coming back to tomorrow. So tomorrow we will have a quick look at our syllabi, and also then we will talk about the general ingredients. And what I want to do, and you will prepare for that on the weekend, will be how do we learn and what all we can learn through case method. So hold on till for that tomorrow. Anybody has a last question? Books are given in your synopsis, in your case material, they are listed.
Yes, ma'am. What should be the approach to study law of crimes? I mean, I have
कल बात करेंगे ये.
Ma'am, I would request one thing, because often, students ask the difference between crime and offense. So I just want you to share your insight. Though I consider crime as a philosophical term, more wider term as compared to offense, including the indictable offenses, or we can see crime or offense as a genus or species. But if you
No, I
can
would
share your
I
insight.
think you are right about that, Harleen, that crime is the concept. And we also say that crime and crimes. So crime is the phenomena. And crimes are what we call as offenses, specific offenses. So in the usage, and if you look at the definition, I think section 40 of IPC gives us the definition of offense. So it is listing out certain categories.
Yes.
But when we talk in criminology, what is crime? We are talking about what all in our head, if we were to make an action into an offense, what are the characteristics of that action which will form us? And when you look at all these criminologists, they say that crime has been in existence forever. Even in the sane society, it is found, because in their category, not taking a bath at 4 o'clock in the morning may be as bad as what we consider as murder. And so therefore, for me, crime, I personally use them interchangeably.
Okay.
But when somebody asks a specific question, then I think it is only that offense is something which the state has declared to be an offense.
True. Yes.
And crime is the concept that we are talking about. But murder is also a crime. You not say the murder is not a crime.
Yes.
But murder is a crime only in those circumstances which are listed there. So if you say murder is intentional killing of somebody else, then that is not a sufficient answer, because soldiers do kill intentionally at the border. But that is not murder.
Yes.
And that's not even considered as crime, because that is seen as the important patriotic duty to defend your own country. So we have created exceptions in all scenarios.
True.
For our purposes, something which has been declared to be an offense is an offense.
Gee. Thanks, ma'am.
Welcome, Harleen. So shall we stop recording?
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.